Hello folks, today we are visiting the Battle of Stalingrad in the world of War Thunder. Infernos has turned in this replay and it features the Achilles, which I'm not going to bore you with the details of. You've probably heard them 100 times before by now. In short, it's an American chassis with a modified turret and a British 17-pounder gun. This battle is going to showcase some of the limitations of that interesting combination and some of its strengths as well. This combination proved to be very, very effective in the war and is going to do so again in this battle. This is a mixed realistic battle, but primarily the sides boil down to American versus Russian, with a few German pieces here and there thrown in for flavor. The Achilles is not a frontline tank. It doesn't have the armor to support that kind of effort. So Infernos is going to move into a position where he can lay in support fire on the nearest capture point. The Stalingrad map is full of rubble, and it demands some very precise targeting and shooting skills to be effective. The long streets and buildings interspersed with piles of rubble here and there make for a very interesting and dangerous combat environment. It's very easy to be spotted at significant ranges, and if you're not aware and watchful, to be picked off by the enemy with little risk to themselves. Then again, there are times when you can pass within mere feet of the enemy and they won't even be aware of your presence. On this map in particular, your eye is drawn to movement of any type to alert you to potential danger, and this plays well to the Achilles' strengths. As a general rule, you want to post up in a strategic spot with a good field of fire and not root around a great deal. That means it's very easy for the enemy to overlook you until it's too late. I think in large part this is due to the sheer volume of structures and the huge amount of detail on this map. It's quite unlike fighting on a big open steppe, where there is plenty of time to look and spot the inorganic shapes of tanks at considerable distance. Here everything is man-made, sharp angles, cluttered. It's easy for your eye to be drawn to anything that moves and ignore everything else. In case you missed it, Infernos just claimed his first victim of this match, and it will be far from the last. One of the weaknesses of the Achilles, its slow turret traverse speed, has caused him to miss what should have been his third kill of the match. He's being pressed hard from the front and from the right flank, and he's about to be overrun. This is going to be a bloody battle on both sides, and Infernos is not going to escape unscathed. But it's going to be one hell of a fight. The T-34 behind him passes by, assuming he's already dead, but that KV-1 driver knows better. Infernos is able to repair, at least partially, and start to turn his tank, but his turret is still stuck, and he's unable to bring his gun to bear in time. The thin armor of the Achilles is no match for the main gun of the KV. Keep your eye on this KV-1 when you get a chance. We'll see him a little bit later on in the match. Now that Infernos is down, there is nothing to stop the enemy team from advancing on Infernos' spawn points. But fortunately, he had enough points accrued to spawn back into his Achilles again. And he wastes no time in advancing into a position where he can open fire on the oncoming enemy. The first order of business is to successfully fight his way out of his own spawn point and keep the enemy from camping it. And the second order of business is to get to the B capture point and stop the capture attempt there before the enemy team wins the match. Despite heavy artillery bombardment and strikes by aircraft overhead, Infernos and a friendly Locust have managed to occupy the B capture point and force the enemy back. Capitalizing on this, a friendly Sherman has managed to actually slip around and force his way into the A capture point at the same time, although he's out there all by himself. But that's not what has captured Infernos' attention. He keeps seeing damage messages, his teammates dying one after another, and realizes that the other spawn point was successfully camped. So as soon as the B point is captured, Infernos is going to make his way back to see if he can rescue his companions. And I think that part of his decision to do so resides in the fact that the tank that is doing so much damage to his team happens to be the same KV-1 that killed him just a short while ago. What transpires next is as inevitable as it is satisfying. While the KV-1 is a much more heavily armored vehicle than the Achilles, against the 17-pounder gun, it doesn't stand a chance. The 17-pounder shells cut through the back of his turret like a hot knife through butter. Of course, it helped that KV-1 driver's attention was solely focused on slaughtering people as soon as they spawned in. And I have to say, it kind of serves him right. Infernos can't dwell in the satisfaction of that last kill. This T-34 just killed the Locust that was guarding Infernos' back, and he barely gets turned around in time to at least avenge him. And the Sherman that was capturing the A point has fallen, and that point is about to be recaptured by the enemy. The B capture point that he had just taken is now under threat again, and he's going to have to go to work to make sure that things don't fall apart just as soon as his team again has another chance. One thing that is working in Infernos' favor, though, is the fact that now that the spawn points are clear, he should have reinforcements on the way very soon. And that's going to help a lot. Those reinforcements take the form of a couple of Stuart light tanks. Yes, they may just be light tanks, but the Stuart's a pretty darn good light tank, and they move into an advanced position up in front of Infernos. They can draw fire up there, and they can lay down a significant amount of firepower all on their own. They very nearly get taken out right off the bat, however, as a bomb dropped right between the light tanks and Infernos. It explodes, and somehow the two Stuarts survive. Almost immediately, they begin to do what they do best, which is advance on the enemy positions, leaving Infernos behind to recapture the base and support them as best he can. No doubt they are emboldened by the fact that having an Achilles guarding your back gives you a very nice edge in combat. And it frees them up to do what they do best, to go on the attack. Infernos is now at 6 kills and 1 assist, and has just captured the B capture point for the second time in the match. It's time for him to move out, though. The enemy bombs are coming a little too close for comfort. And not a moment too soon. He's also moving forward rapidly in an attempt to reinforce the Shermans that have raced out well ahead of him and have gotten beyond his effective covering fire. As it turns out, he's going to be just a moment too slow for that. Stuart got himself trapped, and the T-34 just took him out. The drawback to this, noble though it may be, is that now he has left the safety and support fire of his own group pretty far behind. And while the second Stuart is trying to do his best up there, some of the enemy forces have gotten behind Infernos. He takes a direct hit to the engine, which sets him on fire, and he manages to extinguish that flame, but he's out of action. He's trying to repair as quickly as he can, but boy, he's in a bad situation. Enemy tanks in front of him, a persistent enemy tank behind him, continuing to do damage to his engine compartment. And eventually, he just has to stop. The other Stuart, to his credit, is trying to take out that T-34, but ends up getting destroyed in the process. So now Infernos is out here all alone, broken down and surrounded. So the outcome to this engagement is inevitable. There is nothing that he can do. He has to watch in helpless frustration as the T-34 in front of him pulls boldly out in front, completely safe, while the one behind finishes what he started. The enemy team seems pretty emboldened by their success, and that may yet prove to be their undoing. Fortunately, Infernos has yet again managed to score enough kills where he can spawn back in his Achilles, which is bad news for the enemy team because Infernos has proven himself by far and away to be the most effective piece of ground ordnance in the match. This will be his last respawn, so he's going to have to make this time around count. To that end, Infernos is going to take his Achilles and shove it directly down the enemy's throat. They may kill him, but he's going to make darn sure they choke in the process. Infernos has successfully fought his way deep into enemy territory, and he is taking the enemy's capture point away from them. But his position is extremely exposed. He's going to try and lay down some covering fire and discourage any attempts to ferret him out of his position. But he has set afire again, and his Achilles is disabled. He's stuck, he can't move, and the enemy is closing in. I suspect it was his driver that was knocked out, as it only takes a few seconds for Infernos to become mobile once again, but his turret is still stuck. He's going to try and pull back before he's flanked by this T-34 cruising by in front of him. Again, the enemy ignores him, assuming that he is out of the fight. Well, that's an assumption that they probably shouldn't make. That T-34 manages to avoid destruction, likely not really understanding where that shot came in from. Infernos is finally able to get his turret rotating just a little bit. It's slow at the best of times, and now it's moving at little more than a snail's pace. He slowly begins tracking his gun around. Multiple units begin laying shell after shell after shell into his forward drive wheel, keeping him pinned in place, and soon setting him on fire again and again. Infernos ignores it and grimly continues tracking his intended victim. If you're anything like me during this part of the replay, I was sitting on the edge of my seat screaming, "Turn!" And if you're not, you're a better man than I. He finally brings his gun to bear, and although his reload rate is atrociously slow, he makes old Black Wolf here understand the error of his ways. Never turn your back on an Achilles when its gun is still in play. Infernos' Achilles is hammered again and again and again and set on fire repeatedly. Will he be able to get his gun on target and collect one last kill? Unfortunately, the answer is no. But it really doesn't matter at this point. By holding the A point as long as he did, he manages to ensure a victory for his team, seemingly through sheer effort of will. Thanks for the replay, Infernos. It was a real nail-biter. And thank you for watching. Until I see you again, good hunting. Thanks for watching. I hope you were entertained. If you liked the video, please remember to subscribe. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you. And I'll see you next time.